This is my Logitech G604 gaming mouse. What's happening is that if you just lightly have your finger on it, it'll cause a click, or it'll do a double click, or it just won't click at all. Pretty much sounds like the switches have gone in there, or they're just a little bit faulty. But this, I looked up how to change the switches on this thing. This is a disassembly and a half. All the screws are underneath your glides, so these will most likely have to be replaced. And I'm not going to order replacements until I get this apart, because you have to go basically and disassemble this entire mouse in order to get to the contacts of the solder points of the switches, which I think is just a little ridiculous, especially for something that potentially would need to be fixed. But again, nobody makes things with replacements in mind. So let's go ahead and see if I can get this disassembled and replace the switches. That's today on Tech Guy Life. Oh, I am not looking forward to this repair. This repair might never see the light of day on a video just because it could go pretty badly. Now, luckily for me, this is not my main mouse anymore. When I was having problems with it, I replaced it. But I'd like to get it back in working order. And this glide has already been wrecked because there are 2 layers. And so that means that no matter what, now I have to get new glides. So it doesn't matter what I do with these next ones, they're not going to be around. So, oh, see, that one came totally apart because the second layer did not come off. So if you have a mouse like this and you do need to do repairs on it, keep in mind you will need to pay for the parts and also for new glides. So at that point, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? This, probably, because it is quite an expensive mouse. The glides aren't that super expensive. You can get just regular generic ones for like $8. And I don't think the switches were too expensive. I'd have to look those up again. Okay, here we go. Time for the 1,000 screws. So one thing that there is not for this mouse is an iFixit disassembly guide, which is always a good thing to have because they size out the screws for you. So if you mix something up, you can always try to figure it out later. There are 5 screws on the bottom after you get the glides off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do not use this as a disassembly guide because I am not going to be totally keeping track of every single screw I disassemble. So once you get those screws out, then you can open up the bottom, and we first get our signs of hair and dust. So first thing you do is open up that, and you can pull the ribbon cable out. And then the next thing is you can disconnect the battery from the bottom board right there. So now this part with the sensor is free. So there are 3 screws holding in the battery compartment. So 1, and 2, and 3. So that this should now just pop out if I did it right. There we go. So the next segment to get out is actually like the whole mouse part. So the buttons and the whole thing just kind of pops out from inside the shell. And as far as I could tell, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 5 screws. And these ones look like they're different sizes. So the one that's in here is definitely a different size. This is where one of those screw maps would have been handy to have. Maybe one of these days I'll get one. So that's 1, 2, and 3 have been removed. And now there is these 2. So anyone keeping score, we are currently sitting at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 screws and we barely look like we've disassembled anything. One here, one here, and then there are two along the side here. Oh, another one in the back here. Oh, and another one in here. And there is one more way down in here past the ribbon. So once you get all the screws out, just kind of gently start prying from the back, and it will release and it will come out. So now you can put your shell mostly aside. And we still have about 1,000 screws to take apart on this piece. I don't know where I'm going to put these screws that hold in this button. And this button comes out. And we can at least see the switches now. They're right here. And I could, if I wanted to, just at this point clean them, but I don't think that's going to solve the problem. This seems to be a pretty common issue with this mouse. So we got to keep going. So to get the middle section off, we've got two screws here and one underneath at the front. So that should take that off. Let's continue with the disassembly here. So we're going to take off the button board. So there's one and two. Try not to lose anything. And then that is going to disconnect the ribbon cable here. Unhook the membrane. And that should just come right off like that. And then this piece should come out as well. Yeah. So it just kind of goes up and in there. Quite a lot of disassembly, isn't there? Especially just to get to a couple of crappy little mouse buttons. Okay, two more screws on top. This one, that takes out this little piece here. And on this side, same thing. Okay, this piece here, it just literally will just pop off. But if you need to, you can just kind of, there's nothing holding it down. So it should just pop off. There's a screw holding down this piece of plastic. Okay, so I removed the 5 screws that were holding in the board, but apparently that's not enough. You do have to take apart the wheel, which is unfortunate that this whole thing just couldn't slide right out. You have to first disconnect this rod part, which is here. So there it goes. So there, and there's the 5 screws that I took out of the board itself. Apparently, there are 2 little tiny springs up here. So right underneath this front part, there are 2 little teeny tiny springs. Don't lose them. Take this up very gently. You will see them right there and there. So there's one. I'm going to put that in there. And there is number 2. Wow, those are tiny springs. You probably can't even see them. Even if I put them on camera, they're so tiny, you probably can't see that. And the reason why you got to take the wheel out is because there are 2 more screws under the wheel. These are stupid. These were not necessary. This is just making it excessively difficult to take apart. And finally, the board is free. Wow. Oh, I hope I really love this mouse. Okay, let's get those old switches out of here. So we got the switches out. It was more of a hack job than a nice clean desolder. Kind of similar to what I had to do with the Xbox One controllers. So since the switches are useless, I just kind of hacked them up a little bit in order to get to the individual pins and then desoldered it. It was a lot easier. It would have been a lot easier if I had better side cutters, because my side cutters are all chipped and dull as heck. But anyway, mission accomplished. Switches are out. We've got the new ones to put in. they go in pretty simply, just like that. And we're just going to hold it in and tack down the solder. So I'm just going to put some solder on my iron, hold it in nice and flat. First one is in. Second verse, same at the first. We put our button in, make sure it's in nice and flat. Just put some solder on the iron, tack in the one. It's reassembly time. That was not a lot of work for in terms of the repair compared to the amount of time it's going to take to put this all back together. So we got our board in. So there's that. So now we just have to start putting screws back in. First, we'll start with the 5 that hold the board to the plastic piece.
One eternity later.
Time to put the bottom back on. And that's it. All right, it's time to test this thing out. I do have some new glides to put on it, but I will test it first and then put some new glides on it. So let's see if the mouse is working. Yep, so it's still tracking. Hooked up that hero sensor correctly. Yeah. Let's test the buttons. Let's see. Oh, that mouse click worked right away. The wheel isn't working. Hold on. Nope, I must not have got the ribbon cable hooked up correctly. Time to crack it open again. So, as you can see, the mouse is completely disassembled again, and in more of a not so organized manner. What happened is that the mouse wheel stopped working completely, and I have no idea why. I tore the board right down. I have been testing the individual points. Basically, the transmitter's getting voltage, tests out okay in diode mode. The receiver is getting voltage. Pins on there follow back to the ribbon cable. The ribbon cable appears to be connected correctly because all the other buttons work correctly. And nothing. No mouse wheel at all. I get the mouse wheel click, which is this button here. I get that. I get the mouse. I managed to fix the buttons. The only thing I can think of is that maybe I broke a trace or something underneath the button. With the battery connected, I turned it on, and the IR transmitter is getting voltage, and it's just literally sending out a constant IR stream. What happens is the little fins that are inside the wheel are what cuts off the IR signal and tells the mouse that it's moving. All right, we are back with the mouse completely reassembled. The reason why is I found the problem. While I was changing one of the buttons, I must have cut a trace or broke a trace somewhere that sent power to the IR transmitter for the mouse wheel. So it was no longer sending the infrared stuff over to the receiver in order to detect when the mouse wheel was moving. Somehow I cut that. I don't know where, don't know when. What I did was I ran just a little bodge wire from another power source. I took the power source from the receiver and sent it over to the transmitter, and now everything's working. So let's go back over to the mouse tester and see what's going on. All right, so back on the mouse tester, we're going to go, here we go. There's the mouse, here's the pointer, and there you can see the left mouse button. The right mouse button is working. The scroll wheel is working now, and the middle scroll wheel button is working, and the 2 buttons here are working. Now, there are other buttons on this unit, but I have to configure them with the Logitech software, and I don't feel like doing that right now. This is what I really wanted, was to make sure that the mouse wheel worked and that the buttons were now working again, which they now are, which is great. So now I can put this mouse back into service. And the reason why I wanted to use it is because it has Bluetooth. and I needed a Bluetooth mouse. So this is good. It was a little bit rockier of a journey than I wanted it to be, but that's it. It's fixed. So the last thing to do is to replace the glides. So I'm just going to turn the mouse off so it doesn't go all crazy. And I just ordered a set of glides to replace the ones that I had to destroy taking off. So there we go, new glides. Ooh, silky smooth. Well, I'm glad this mouse is repaired and ready to go again. This was not the kind of repair that I thought it was going to be. That was a lot of disassembly, a lot of organization of the screws, and a lot of parts. I think I counted there was roughly 30 screws holding this thing together, which is incredible. I don't recommend this. This was fun for me because I like to do this kind of stuff. If you like to do it and you're not worried about screwing it up and throwing it away, hey, go for it. Definitely, I screwed it up when I broke that trace and had no idea where it was. Luckily, I could figure out what was actually wrong and found a way to fix it. But most people probably won't be able to. So, unfortunately, I don't think this is a very good repairable product in that respect, which is kind of typical these days. But anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Like and subscribe. Bye.